super nation.
Welcome back. Now let's get started. In April 2014, dozens of heavily armed Boko Haram insurgents stormed a government-run boarding school in the town of Chibok in Borno State, northeastern Nigeria, abducting scores of schoolgirls from their dormitories. Last week, after nearly 3 years in captivity, 21 of the abducted schoolgirls were freed.
Thankfully.
They regained their freedom following intense and long negotiations involving the federal government and the government of Switzerland. And we hear that the Red Cross was also involved in it somewhere. So, what next for these girls? That is the question we're going to try to answer this morning, and we have a panel of knowledgeable people. Starting with the one who is in Lagos with us, Ona Ekomu, a security expert. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And from Abuja, we have the group coordinator, Bring Back Our Girls, Buki Shonibare. Good morning. As well as the executive director at CISO Empowerment Foundation, Ear Jonathan. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, many people worry, Ona, that these girls might face some kind of stigmatization, that the society needs to help them somehow so that they can be adequately reintegrated into the society. What's your take?
Well, first of all, we want to thank God and thank the government, the president, and his team for working hard to release those girls. I wasn't one of the very optimistic persons there, and because of the pedigree of the abductors. But I'm happy that things have turned out well for at least these 21 that have come back home.
I think about 3 or 4 had run away before, those who escaped.
Well, yeah, that was about 50 at the initial point of abduction. That was, you know, they took 279, 50 got away, and so we have 219 with them. Out of which we've gotten 21. But well, Nkeki was found roaming in the bush somewhere, and now we've got 21. So we have 22 back as a result. So I think there are many issues involved here. When the girls were released, I put out a release under the auspices of my organization saying that we should try not to get into this media circus with them and going around visiting VIPs and all that, but that this should be a very private time for these girls and their families, and they should in fact be shielded from media attention entirely, from the lenses of plucky photographers and cameramen and what have you. You know, because they need to come to terms. These girls they didn't go on vacation. They went to hell, to the pits of hell, and they came back. You know, this is a time for you to come back with yourself and your family. People who will reinforce the fact that, yes, indeed, you are alive, and you are okay, and so on and so forth. Because every other person out there, be they government official, be they whatever, they are in there for whatever publicity value they can get, as far as I'm concerned. Now, but having said that, I think the issue of stigma that you raised, I think that's going to that's going to be there. I mean, it's like the Sambisa pregnancies we talked about when all those ladies were released and they all had these BH babies with them. Now, that issue of stigma is going to be there, but I think these girls, their issue had been raised to an international level that they have an outpouring. They are a very lucky group. Like the president said to them, that your best days are here now. They're a very lucky group because we thank God for the BBOG people, Dr. Obiagilenwa, the lady who is on set now, Ms. Shonibare. We thank God for them because they, they put the issue on the front burner and refused to let the government fall asleep at the switch.
Yeah.
And eventually the government had to do something, and they did something. And I'm very proud that our government showed that the life of every Nigerian really counts here.
Okay. Yeah, Mrs. Shonibare, if you don't mind, there are reports that some of those girls...
Before we go to Abuja, I think we should just go on a quick break, and Sunrise will be back in a moment.
Welcome back. Now, I was asking Buki Shonibare, now there are reports that a third of these girls actually do not want to come back. How would BBOG come in to ensure that they are reassured enough to actually want to get back their lives?
Thank you. First, let me also congratulate all of us who have been on this issue. When we got the report that over 100 of them wouldn't want to come back, it puts to question a lot of things that we should begin to talk about. One, on the possibility of that happening, and two, what should be the right thing to be done. The possibility of that happening borders on the fact that these are girls that are still in their formative years at the time that they were taken. They're still minors. The possibility of Stockholm Syndrome is very high. We've seen how that has played out on several occasions. So that's on one end, and several other factors. There's also the possibility that that isn't true. And we need to look at that as well, as against just taking everything that comes from that coffer, hook, line, and sinker. But let's look at what should be done. When these girls were abducted, they didn't take permission to be abducted. They didn't ask to be abducted. What happened to them is an unfortunate stigma on our nation. So they shouldn't be the one to dictate, if at all that is happening, be the one to dictate whether they want to come back or not. It is the responsibility of the government to ensure that girls that were abducted unwillingly, without their consent, are brought back. If they now come back, they can now discuss all the other issues around it. But for them to say that, oh, they don't want to come back, and that becomes an excuse as to why they shouldn't be brought back, then I think that is foolhardy. We as a group, as Bring Back Our Girls, will keep advocating on this issue. We'll ensure that 276 girls were abducted, 57 escaped within the first few weeks. Amina and Keke came back in May. We have 21 back. That means altogether we have 79 that have returned. We're expecting 197 more. And if there's going to be any logical closure, there should be an explanation as to why, logically, acceptably, why those other ones shouldn't be brought back. But the excuse of some are saying that they don't want to come back or not, I don't think it is tenable. Okay,
let's move to there. We're talking about rehabilitating these girls. We're looking at, making sure that they are reintegrated into the society. The government has started with medicals. Tell us, where do we go from there?